What is going on, everybody? So in one of my previous videos, someone had commented or asked in a comment to show a project setup with Terraform. So let's jump right in. If we just go out here real quick to the internet, we could search for GCP Terraform, and their documentation is pretty good. This will take you to the HashiCorp tutorial. Just what is Terraform, how to install it. We'll just go here to the examples. So in previous videos, I've shown how to install Terraform on Linux, as well as install the Google Cloud SDK and set that up. I'll link those down in the description. So this is going to make the assumption that you have those set up. So if we look here, we can see that create a service account. That just walks you through what permissions it needs, how to set up the JSON key, create a new project, and then it goes right into making the code. But actually, I have a project here that is empty from my previous video, and this is going to set up a VM instance and a Big Query Dataset. So typically you would go in here and click enable. If you have gcloud set up, I believe you can do gcloud services list, and then if we look here, we have computegoogleapis.com. So I will do gcloud services enable compute.google. I was hoping I could auto-complete that. Oh, maybe because I had a typo. Enable. There we go. All right. Now let's hit refresh here. Ooh, actually, I might be in a different project. So let's go gcloud projects list. And I'm going to do is it gcloud config list. There we go. Okay, so I'm still on Docker demo. I want to do gcloud config project Terra demo 5573. And actually, I'm going to come back here to the dashboard, because this shows the project name, but that can definitely be different than the project ID. And let me just check my note here, see what I did wrong. I forgot to put set. And that should be projects. I am batting 1,000 here. Okay, it's config, and then what we're doing is setting the project, and we're going to you know what, I don't need that to be my default, so let's just run the darn thing. Okay, if I figure out what was going on there, I will put that down in the comments. Okay, So now let's enable that. And we can look at the documentation here. It gives you how to write the main.tf. I'm not going to make a VPC just because you can set that to the default, and that'll work just fine for our purposes. But actually, while that's still spinning up, that will take a minute. I'm just going to let me do Terraform demo there, and I will change into that directory. And actually, I'm just going to open up VF's code here, and I will make a main.tf. And what we can do is grab this, and the provider, this is what allows us to talk to different cloud providers: Azure, AWS, in our case GCP, and also I believe vSphere. If you're running VMs locally, you can use Terraform with that, but that does need to be downloaded by Terraform, and we can do that with Terraform init. All right, and I'm not sure, but I believe because I've used this in other projects on this machine, that's why it was so quick. Might take a few minutes for you if this is your first time. Let's see how that. All right. So now if we go back to GCP, all right. Notice we don't get the enable API anymore. We just have that enabled. So let's go ahead and we will enable BigQuery. And let's see. BigQuery.google. Just checking to see if the tab autocomplete worked. It did not. All right. So now we should be able to go here to BigQuery. And notice we do not have any data sets. Okay. So, jumping right in actually to the documentation here, we can see that there it sets the credentials, the project, the region, the zone. This is how to create a VPC other than the default VPC that is made when you create a project. You can read through this documentation if you'd like. You can see they're running Terraform init. Terraform format. That one's really kind of nifty. I will actually go ahead and show that. So, say I save that, Terraform format, and notice it moved it back. Just kind of keeps everything neat and tidy. You can also do a Terraform validate, and probably missing the required providers because I do not have providers listed here. So I actually have this typed out, so I'm just going to copy and paste. As you've seen, I don't remember commands all that well all the time, so we can just go ahead and paste that here. Actually, Yeah, this is the one I wanted. That was kind of a, yeah, sure. That was kind of a experiment I was running. So notice what is different here than from the example is I do not have these listed explicitly. I guess that was on the previous page. Oh, there we go. Okay. Here they have it explicitly listed out. But I believe it's best practice, or I don't know. I like it to separate these into a variables file. So if I do variables.tf, Terraform will automatically recognize. If I do variable my var, and you can do a description here if you'd like, and you can set a default like that. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste over what I've already created in this other file here. Sorry about that. I am on a VM and it keeps thinking I want to drag and drop to my host. There it is again. If you have VMs, you probably do not want drag and drop enabled. That is a security risk. But for certain things I do, it makes it a bit easier. This we will need to update to Terra demo, and let's see, 5573. Again, that's the project name, not the project ID, but in this case, they do happen to be the same. So we have that. The credentials file. Notice here I am using, it's a file, and it's var.credentials file, var.project, var.region, because it knows the var dot means go to the variables file, find that variable, and grab the value. I have my region set to US Central 1, the zone, US Central 1C. Don't really need to update this, but I'll just call it Terra tests. So we have these variables set here. And I guess in practice, you would probably build out your main.tf file, see which variables that you would like to change depending on your use case, and then kind of extrapolate those into the variables file. Okay. So this is why I wanted to make this video. I didn't see a lot out here on setting up the VM instances, at least not ones that I really cared for. And let me switch back to here, and still going through this one. It's somewhere in here. Okay. So this has Debian Cloud, Debian 1.1. I prefer Ubuntu. Specifically, I'm using the Jammy release, so I would like to stick with that one. So if you want to see where those are, had it in an open window. So once you've authenticated with gcloud, you can do gcloud compute images list. If we did Debian, oops, I need to grep that. And that does take a minute to parse. But then notice, if you look here, we can kind of just infer how they're doing that. So Debian Cloud, Debian 11. So here it looks like they're using this piece here combined with that piece. So all I did was I did compute images list, and then I just grepped for Jammy because I know that is in one of the Ubuntu releases names. There's going to be several images. You're going to probably see the ARM architecture. Yep, there it is. And again, you just use this piece, whack, and then that piece. If you wanted ARM, you would go with that. If you wanted the minimal Ubuntu, you would have that there. Okay, so let me copy that over. And size 15. That's going to be 15 gigs on the disk. I actually, funny, I asked ChatGPT, how do I set the size to 10 gigs, and it told me to set that to, I want to say 100 million. Glad I double checked that. My machine type is E2 medium. And if you wanted to switch it to a different type, you could always just go to Compute Engine, VM instances, create an instance, or actually you could probably Google GCP VM instance types. You could have used E2 micro, E2 small, you could have grabbed some of these, whatever you'd like. And I still didn't copy that over. So I'm going to copy that now. Notice there are, this isn't closed out. I believe I could close that out, save it. I could do a Terraform validate. You know what, maybe it did not bring down the provider because I did not have this piece in yet. So I believe that was the issue. We see a lock.htcl file now. And this might yell at me because I don't have... so it does need a network interface block. Okay, easy enough. Give myself some room because I'm still going to paste that metadata in. This is just a note to myself. If you go ahead and omitted this piece here, that is going to give you an internal IP address, non-routable, 10 dot something, but it will not give you an external IP address, static or dynamic, or I guess ephemeral. So I'm going to go ahead and put that back in. I'm actually surprised that the validate didn't yell at me because I have this test.json that is not present. If we wanted to do that, there's actually three ways you could authenticate. You could set an environmental variable, I believe, Google _credentials, and I think Terraform is smart enough to pick up on that. I believe you could also do gcloud auth application default login. And by running that after you have authenticated to gcloud, again, Terraform is smart enough to pick up on that. If you're doing it locally on your machine, that's probably fine. Again, depending on your use case, you would definitely want credentials file, and you would want that stored separately. But In my case, you know what, I'm going to just do test.json. I'm going to put it in the current directory because I will not be pushing this to GitHub. So if I go to IAM, or actually, service accounts, I would like to create a service account, Terra deploy, and I need to give it some permissions. I want it to be actually, I think it's easier if I scroll down to project. There we go. Project owner. All right, and there's our Terra deploy. And we are just going to manage keys. Add a key, create a new key, and we will make that JSON. And if I just go ahead and I'm going to move from my home directory downloads, I'm going to move terrademo.json, and I am going to move it to test.json. So this is, the move is moving it, but can also be used to rename if you're not familiar. So then that's going to be here. We see we have test.json. And that's what's going to allow us to create resources on GCP. Again, you could do Google credentials as an environmental variable. You could cache credentials with gcloud after you authenticate, but we'll just use the file for this demonstration. Okay. So there is one other thing I would like to do here, and so when we go ahead and run this, and actually, why not? Let's just do that. See if we get any errors. Oh, not deploy, apply. And while that's running, we can go back and look at the VMs. So this should spin up a VM with an external ephemeral IP address. It should have 10 gigs. Oh, need to approve it. That would help. But it will be an E2 medium VM. The zone is defined in variables. It's going to be on Ubuntu. Oh, I did make that a minimal. And it's going to have 15 gigs on the boot disk. So let's go see what we got. All right, we have an external IP address. And if we go ahead and go in, we should see 15 gigs. And you know what? I don't really like it. Actually, there's nothing wrong with it. But if you're new to Terraform, Terraform Destroy is your friend. That will take down all the resources you created in your Terraform file. Okay, so moving on. Let's see if we wanted to go ahead and not have to go to GCP. We can go ahead and put this in here. And what output is going to do is it's going to print after we run the Terraform apply. And don't remember where I found that, but let's see. GCP Terraform. Terraform VM. Okay, and this is kind of hidden in here. Let's see. Wow, there is a lot. Okay, if the instance has an access config, either the given external IP in the net IP field, or the ephemeral generated IP if you didn't provide one. I don't know what that means, but I think that means if you assign a static IP, that's what this is going to give you. The ephemeral, that's what we did when we put this access config and just left it blank. I believe you could configure a static IP there, but I'm not sure. I want to say that may cost money. Oddly enough, there is another way, which it seems like it's dot notation or by index as well. This is what I originally had, and it worked just fine. And I don't know, I was just curious. I was looking around, not much documentation on it, but then I came across this and thought, I wonder if that works as well, and indeed it does. So now, if I go ahead and save that, and should probably run format, everything was good, validate, everything's good, and we can go ahead and apply yes to confirm. And we'll give that just one moment, and we should, about the same time that comes up. All right, that looks like it's a new one. And there's our public IP address. So now say we don't, well, I don't know, don't have access to a web browser. That's probably not likely. But if you want to be cool and just use the CLI, and who doesn't want to be cool? I want to be cool. Create GCP SSH key. You really think I'd have this memorized by now, but I always just copy and paste. It's simple. What username do you want? Key file name. That's the name that the file is going to be stored as. If you kind of parse these commands, what it's going to do is it's going to do an SSH keygen. It's going to save it to a file in your home directory in the .ssh directory, which is kind of hidden. You can CD to it, but you won't see it if you just do a regular ls. I'll just call this demo key. And I always give the username Gary. Leave the passphrase empty. And let's see. Let me copy and paste that. We need to add that as metadata. Don't think the order here matters, but save that. Notice that just moved it over there. And actually, I think we could do something like ~/.ssh and the public key, which is what we want to put in our VM. The private key is saved local, and putting the public key on the VM is what allows us to SSH to it. So I called this demo key and it does need the .pub for public. Let's do Terraform validate, Terraform plan, and this will show us what changes are going to be made. All right, there's my key. And Terraform apply. All right, now we should just be able to SSH the username that we gave when we generated the key files, and then at the IP address we're given. All right, and we see we are now in a machine that is called test as a user Gary. We have test there. So we are good. If you wanted to be really clever and use a config file, which a config file lets you kind of specify different keys, give them aliases and IP addresses. That way you can just SSH. They're very handy. I guess if you were clever, you could probably figure out a way how to update a config file with the output of Terraform, so then you could just SSH to an alias, but I digress. So, last but not least, I just want to show that we can do the Big Query. That's going to be Google _Big Query _dataset. This is just the name that it's going to be known as in your Terraform files. You see that we were actually pulling from the variable file again, and the default is fixed name. We updated that in the other one, the one that we were actually playing around with and deploying. So I will copy that. And I don't know if that's best practice, but I like to have the output there at the bottom. Validate Terraform plan, and so we can see what changes will be made. And there's 1 to add, 0 changed, 0 destroyed, meaning none of our existing resources are going to be changed, none of them will be destroyed, and we are just adding 1. What are we adding? We are adding Big Query Dataset, and then let's see, there is going to be the ID and the project it's in and the location. And actually, if I have enough time, that will time out if you do not type yes quick enough. Oh, I was too slow. But you'll just have to take my word, that was not there before. And actually we can go make sure our VM is still running, but not for long, because we will clean up after ourselves and do a Terraform destroy. And while that's cleaning up, I will just emphasize again, if you are using credential files, if you have SSH keys, you probably do not want to store them in here. Actually, I don't know. The public key would probably be fine. Can't do much with that. But just good habit. You're probably going to want to take those out and put them in different directory, just in case you're committing to GitHub or something like that, or sharing files. You don't want to accidentally give people your service accounts, or even worse, your private SSH keys. You can see that's being brought down, and now if we go over, we see that the VM instance is gone, and that is gone as well. So where to go from here? I would say, well, Terraform is very useful. My experience with it is limited, but if you have a project that you're working on and has even something as simple as this, or a GCP bucket, a few other things, you know what, you're going to put it down for a month or two, it might just be great to make a Terraform project like this and say, you know what, I don't want to risk being billed, just destroy everything, and then when you're ready, just go ahead and deploy it, spin those resources back up. If you have a project and it's going to pull from GitHub, in the VM here, you can specify a startup script. A startup script is going to run every time the VM starts up, so plan accordingly. You might want to say, hey, if this directory exists, just exit. If it doesn't exist, pull it from GitHub, change into the directory, run these setup scripts, and run these tasks. But hopefully this was a gentle introduction to Terraform and GCP. Gives you some ideas and maybe a feel for how these pieces fit together. I will take the variables.tf and main.tf. I'll go ahead and put those into a GitHub repo. Once that's done, I'll put it down in the description. Again, if there are things that you would like to see, videos, let me know down in the comments and I'll see if I can get to those. But that's it for this video, and I will see you in another one.